Hey guys, we're gonna start really soon now. So sorry about the feedback on my computer a few seconds ago. I think it was a little bit messed up, but I think I fixed it now. So can everybody hear me okay? Okay, great. I see nodding heads. So, hi, I hope you guys are having a great day so far. I am Amanda Zoe. I'm the president of Math Invitational for Girls. So today we are having our second seminar of our two-part college seminar series. So I'm so glad to see so many of you guys here. I see a lot of familiar names probably from our last seminar. So if you guys were not here for our last seminar, we had a couple of speakers talk about their individual experiences with their colleges and kind of applying to different colleges. So today we have our second part to that series where we have pretty much the same speakers talk about also their journeys at their individual colleges, kind of more personal experiences about maybe the college campus, the city around them, and stuff like that. So I hope you guys all enjoy. I will introduce our MIG team very quickly, and then we can get on with the seminar. So first, we have Marissa Liu, who is our Vice President of MIG. So Marissa, if you want to introduce yourself very quickly.
Hi everyone, I'm Marissa Liu. I'm a sophomore at Colorado High School, and in addition to math, I like to play piano and flute, and I also swim. And I'm so glad that everyone is here, and I hope you guys enjoy the seminar.
Great, thank you, Marissa. Next, we have Sydney, who is our Director of Logistics. So Sydney, if you want to go ahead and also introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm Sydney. I'm a sophomore at Houston High School, and other than math, I also like to play chess, and I hope you enjoy our seminar.
Thank you. And now we have Ava, who is our Assistant Director of Logistics. So you can also go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, my name is Ava Guazzo. I go to White Station High School. I enjoy being an active member of the junior ROTC program, as well as on the competitive cheerleading team. I hope you all enjoy the seminar.
Thank you, Ava. And now we have Ira, who is our Director of Marketing. Unfortunately, she couldn't make it today, but she also really hopes you guys enjoy the seminar. And finally, we have our two problem writers and website developers, Alex and Jerry. So if you guys also want to go ahead.
Hey guys, my name is Alex. I'm a senior at Carterville High School, and I do enjoy math like the rest of the team, and I also enjoy Chick-fil-A and powerlifting. Our team has put a lot of work into organizing the seminar today, and so we hope you all enjoy our speakers and their presentations.
Thank you. And now we have Jerry, if you want to also introduce yourself. Oh, seems like Jerry is not in the meeting yet, so I will let him introduce himself when he does arrive. But so as Alex said, this is the team that has been working together over the past few months to bring you guys this seminar. And without further ado, we can go ahead and introduce our first speaker. So Alex, if you want to go ahead and do that.
All right, thank you, Amanda. Our first speaker, Anna Hudson, is a freshman at Stanford University, currently studying psychology. She's from Carterville, Tennessee, and she likes carrots and science. So please, join me in welcoming Anna.
Thank you guys. So I'm going to share my screen. I have some slides. Okay, so since I'm only a freshman, I haven't experienced all of these Stanford traditions myself, but I've heard a lot from upperclassmen, and I still have experienced like a lot of things that have to do with Stanford. So I'm just going to tell you about my experiences here. So the first thing that we can talk about is freshman dorms. So at Stanford, all the frosh live with other freshmen mostly. You have an option to live with every class year, but only about 10% of students do that, and most people live with just other freshmen. So all the freshman dorms take trips. There's one to Lake Tahoe, that's a skiing trip, one to Monterey Bay Aquarium, and then one to San Francisco, where the whole dorms compete in a scavenger hunt. And those are all included in your housing budget, so you don't have to pay more for those. It's just like a Stanford tradition that everybody does together. Another thing Stanford has is theme housing. So the main type of this is like ethnic theme housing. So there's housing for Asians. I think there's Asian, Latinx, Native American, and maybe one more type. And if you want to, you can live with those ethnic groups too. We also have co-ops, which are kind of similar to sororities, except instead of being centered around like a sorority and their values, they have their own themes. Like there's one called the Enchanted Broccoli Forest where everybody's vegan. And those houses, it's like a house that people live in instead of a dorm building, and they operate on their own. We also have Greek life, so we have fraternities and sororities, but it's not a huge part of the culture here. Only about 30 to 40% of people are in Greek life. So in the dorms, we have a lot of support at Stanford. So every floor has an RA, and then there's also RFs, which are resident fellows. And those are adults that teach at the school that live in houses connected to your dorm. And then in addition to RFs, there's residence deans, RDs, and they're mostly there to help you with any issues that arise. So basically when you're at Stanford, if you have any problems, there's always a ton of people to help you, which is really nice. And then we also have dining halls with different themes. So one of them's Asian, one of them's Mexican food, like one of them has Indian food, etc. So there's a lot of variety and options. So next are some classic Stanford traditions. So one of them is birthday showers. So every time somebody has a birthday, like the RAs and everybody in the dorm will basically drag them out of their room at midnight and make them take a shower, like with their clothes on, all together. And it's just like a way to build up camaraderie within the dorm. And then there's a big rivalry between Stanford and Cal. And so every year the big game is between Stanford and Cal, and everybody gets like really excited, and there's a bunch of like rallies and things going on around it. And the Stanford band is also pretty unique because most people don't play instruments. They just get random stuff and hit it and walk around the field and pretend they're a band. So they have a lot of fun. Another thing is Primal Scream, where on finals week, everybody just like screams at midnight. I think a lot of schools have some variation of this though. And then since Stanford is a huge CS school, some people made this project called the Marriage Pact, where every year you can fill out like, it's like a 90-question survey about what you want in a romantic partner. And then they use this algorithm to match you up with somebody to marry like when you're 30 if you don't find anybody else. So most people just use it to make friends, but it's just a nice tradition. Okay, so we're in Palo Alto, which is south of San Francisco, but just to give you an idea of like how long it takes to get to the things nearby, you can use Caltrain, which is like public transportation, or Zipcar, where you basically rent a car by the hour. It's like $6 an hour, so it's not too expensive. And taking those, you can go to San Francisco, San Jose, the beach, and Monterey Bay, which is like another beach with a cool aquarium. Okay, next up is duck syndrome and imposter syndrome. These are very prevalent at Stanford. And basically, if you imagine a duck, like on the surface, if you look from above, it looks really calm, right? But if you look under the water, its feet are paddling super fast. And so at Stanford, it seems like everybody's chill all the time. And you're the only one stressed out, but everybody's really stressed out. So depending on, if you go to Stanford, you'll definitely experience this, but at most good schools, they have the same problem. So just remember when you go to college, if it seems like you're the only one who's like paddling really hard and stressed out, that's not true. Everybody's stressed out. And imposter syndrome is the feeling that like you're kind of inferior to your peers and you don't really deserve to be here because everybody else has done better things than you. A lot of times people on LinkedIn from Stanford will have like these amazing accomplishments, and like somebody in my grade is like already in the Forbes 30 under 30 list. So a lot of people feel imposter syndrome, and just know that everybody's feeling that way if you ever feel that way. Okay, next up is the academic structure. So Stanford doesn't have semesters, we have quarters instead. So instead of having fall semester and spring semester, we have fall quarter, winter quarter, and spring quarter. And then summer quarter is like your summer. So that means you get to take 3 sets of classes every year instead of 2. So you take more classes. And this has its pros and cons. I personally really like it because I get to take more classes, but it also means that your classes are at a much faster pace. So instead of having like a whole semester in 3 months to learn something, you have to learn like an entire topic in like 10 weeks, which can be kind of stressful, but you get to fit a lot more into your college experience. And then also you're allowed to take between 12 and 20 units, which is how we measure the credits for our classes. So each unit is supposed to represent 3 hours of classwork a week, including like class time and homework. And most freshmen take about 15 units, and then people take about 18 after that usually. Okay, so Stanford has some unique majors, so I just wanted to touch on a couple of those. One of them is symbolic systems, which is basically a combination of CS and psychology. And then another one is human biology, which is really good if you're pre-med because it helps you get your pre-med requirements out of the way with mostly your major requirements. So there's a lot of overlap there. And then it also allows you to like pick what type of health you want to focus on, if that makes sense. So everybody has to take these basic biology requirements, but you get to pick on if you want to focus like on the social determinants of health or like very specific diseases or like neuroscience. So one of the good things is that a lot of the majors here are highly customizable. So you can definitely find what you want. And then a lot of majors have honors projects or an honors thesis. And some of these can become like real devices and projects, if that makes sense. So for the bioengineering one, everybody who completes an honors project has to create like a patented medical device that is usually used like after they graduate. So there's a lot of potential for really impactful projects, and you can get funding to work on those too. And then Stanford also has something else called a co-term degree, where you can get a master's degree and a bachelor's at the same time. You can either get it in 4 years or stay like an extra year and finish in 5 years. Okay, we also have this special type of class called intro sems or introductory seminars. So these are classes that are capped at 15 students and they're taught by professors on topics of their choice. So no professor has to ever teach an intro sem, which means that they're all things that the professors are super interested in and really want to teach about. So they're usually super interesting and unique classes that they don't have at other schools. Some of the most famous ones are like how to make a racist, chemistry in the kitchen. There's one about understanding your unconscious mind. So there's a bunch of like super niche topics that you can get an expert perspective on. Okay, next up, since Stanford is a huge CS school, I thought I would address it. So I think 40% of students here major in CS and a lot more minor or at least take a CS class. So our CS intro classes are taught by usually multiple professors. And then they have other older students, like graduate students or older undergrads who teach you smaller sections so you can get more individual help. So if you come to Stanford, I highly recommend you take a computer science class. And most people here talk about CS a lot. Okay, next up, there's so many research opportunities here throughout the year and in the summer. So in the summer, most of the departments have REU programs, which stands for Research Experience for Undergraduates. And those are basically where in the summer you get to live on campus and you get paid a stipend, which is usually like $8,000. And that's about the cost that it is to live on campus. So you're not making that much money, but you get to basically stay here for free. And you get to participate in research with the faculty. So they have that for so many different topics like bioengineering, material science, CS, etc. And there's also a lot of humanities research here. People talk about STEM more, but the humanities program is really robust too. And then there's also some other summer programs. One is called Cardinal Quarter, where basically you can get funded to do nonprofit work or charity work, or even design your own service project and get funding to do that. And then there's also another program where if you have federal work study, you can get paid to work at a nonprofit of your choice. So basically Stanford just has a lot of funding available to help you do what you want to do and learn what you want to learn. Okay, next up, clubs. Every college has clubs, but Stanford has some different ones. I think I have another slide on this. Yeah, so I wanted to highlight that you can get a lot of job and internship opportunities from joining clubs, and some clubs, like some companies recruit specifically from certain clubs. So for example, our Bases Club is like one of the business clubs on campus. And a lot of times when new startups are looking for interns, they'll go directly to that club and ask if anybody's interested. So joining clubs is a great way to find out about more opportunities like that. And then another thing that most clubs do is have events with like really famous people. So there's one like in 2 days with the Masterclass CEO. I went to one where the Intel president talked, and then another one where the father of CRISPR was basically like explaining CRISPR, talking about like new technologies and gene therapies. So there's a lot of opportunities to learn from really famous people who can give you a lot of perspective. And you always have an opportunity to ask questions to them too. So there's just a lot of good events that clubs put on. And then also a lot of the projects that clubs do are really impactful. So for example, the Space Club, I think it's called Stanford Space Initiative, right now has like multiple different devices it designed on the International Space Station. And a lot of people work with like high impact organizations. And then also a lot of clubs will have like a crash course or basically like lessons that they teach in the club meetings about a niche topic. So for example, social entrepreneurship or business or effective altruism. Okay, next up, since we're in Silicon Valley, entrepreneurship is really important. So Stanford has connections with a lot of venture capitalist firms in the area. And so once again, when the venture capitalists are recruiting, they'll come to Stanford first. So I get like probably 10 to 15 emails a day about like venture capital firms hiring people or like looking for entrepreneurs, etc. And then Stanford also has a lot of like startup accelerators. So startups are when you start your own company, right? And a lot of times they don't have very much money and they need funding and advice. And so startup accelerators are basically programs that give people with a good business idea support and advice and money so that they can like turn their idea into a real company. And Stanford has a lot more of those than most schools. And the advisors that they get through them are usually associated with really famous companies. So if you're interested in entrepreneurship, this is a really good school for that. And then some other opportunities here are you can get mentors from different schools. And by different schools, I mean different schools within Stanford. So Stanford has like its undergrad schools, but it also has a graduate school of business, a graduate school of education, a law school, and a med school. So there's a program where you can get a mentor from like basically any of those schools. So if you're interested in business, you can talk to MBA students, or if you're a pre-med, you can talk to med students. And so there's a lot of opportunity for mentorship and learning from them. And then also, since we have so many graduate and professional schools, you can usually access the opportunities there. So like, for example, I'm interested in drug development. So right now I'm taking a class at the med school about drug development. And then they also have a program where they help people who have an idea on how to make a therapy, like a medical therapy. They bring their idea all the way to clinical trials and FDA approval. So right now I'm going to all of those club meetings, even though I'm just like a random undergrad. So it's really important to seek out those opportunities and take advantage of them if possible. Okay, that's all I have. I think those are the most important things to remember about Stanford. And if you have any questions, I think you can ask me now. Amanda will probably tell you how that works. And if we can't get to your question, feel free to email me here.
All right, well, thank you so much, Anna, for that amazing presentation. If I do have the privilege of getting into Stanford this year, you can bet that it'll definitely be one of my top choices, especially with all the opportunities that you presented to us here. Like Anna said, if you guys have any questions for her, please go ahead and drop that into the Zoom chat. And in the meantime, I actually do have a quick personal question that's really important to me when I'm picking my colleges. Is how's the boba scene around Stanford, if you know what I'm saying?
Okay, so boba at Stanford is huge. There's like probably 15 boba shops in a 1 mile radius of campus, and a lot of clubs and dorms will give out free boba at events. So if you like boba, this is a place to be.
All right, well, that's great to hear. One question that we got on our Google form was, how did you decide to go to Stanford over all of the other schools that you were accepted into?
So in my final round of decisions, I was deciding between Stanford, Princeton, Columbia, Penn, and Johns Hopkins. So I didn't like Columbia because of their, like, they have Common Core or core curriculum, which is great if it's your interest. But I personally wanted to be able to focus on STEM classes and have a lot more freedom with my academics. So this is something I didn't mention before, but instead of having like typical requirements, like most colleges will require you to take like bio, calculus, and like these very specific classes, Stanford just says you have to take one class about quantitative reasoning, one class about ethical reasoning, which sounds kind of scary, but it's really simple. Basically, you have to take one class that's like sciencey or kind of STEM, and they have very like mild STEM classes and mild humanities classes. So you basically just have a lot more freedom in how you want to structure your academics and courses. And that's why I chose Stanford over Columbia. I didn't like Penn because I accidentally applied to the School of Science instead of the School of Engineering, and then I found out I couldn't change. So when you're applying to Penn, make sure you look at that. And then I heard that Hopkins was pretty toxic. And one of the good things about Stanford is that people here are a lot more collaborative and willing to work together. So I've met like tons of people since I've been here, and I've only met like 2 people who were toxic and competitive. So I think Stanford has a really good environment in terms of like valuing collaboration and wanting to work together. So that's why I chose it over that. And then honestly, I think Stanford just had a lot more STEM opportunities than Princeton. Princeton seemed a lot more focused on business, and I personally knew I wanted to do STEM. And Stanford had like labs that were more interesting to me, better research opportunities, and just like better STEM professors. So that's why I chose it over that one.
So do you think that the fact that Stanford's in California gives you more opportunities in any way?
I think it gives you more opportunities because it's in Silicon Valley and a lot of tech companies are here. So if you're interested in tech, like it's really convenient because Google recruiters and Facebook recruiters and Genentech recruiters and like all these famous prestigious companies will send the recruiters to campus directly to talk to students here. And so if you're interested in any of those like Silicon Valley type companies, you do have more opportunities just because we're very close by and they already have connections with Stanford. So I think it helps in that way. Plus, not that you should decide a school based on the weather, but the weather here is amazing. There's palm trees outside and it's really sunny. So I think that really helps with your mood whenever you're trying to study on finals week and everything's really exhausting and stressful. It's nice to be able to look outside and see the palm trees and have warm weather.
All right, well, that is a great answer. I think that's all of the questions that we have for now. So thank you so much, Anna, for coming today. We all really enjoyed your presentation, and I will hand it off to Sydney.
Okay, so our second speaker for today is Jessie, who is a computer science major at Georgia Tech. She grew up in Duluth, and since high school, she's been tutoring students from middle schoolers to fellow classmates for perfect ACT scoring. She's also very involved in her community and is even developing prototypes in a grand challenge program. As we go along, feel free to leave questions for Jessie in the chat. For now, please join me in welcoming Jessie.
Hi, sorry. I couldn't join from my laptop again, so I gave someone the link to the presentation. Okay, yeah, that's it. Sweet. All right, so the first thing that a lot of people after reaching their junior or senior year of high school are considering are like their majors. And when you reach junior or senior status in college, you're just thinking about like, what do you do for the rest of your life? Oh yeah, sorry, you can go to the next slide. Okay, so here's some like common things that people do. A lot of people like they do internships while they're still undergrads, and then that way they have sort of like a job lined up for them when they're about to graduate. I call this like working for industry. You can work for someone else, like for a company, like be corporate, or you can work for yourself, like be an entrepreneur. Another thing people do is like some people want to kind of stay in school a little and like do research or like learn more about the area. That's a good option for graduate school where you can get like a master's or a PhD. What's the difference between master's and PhD? This is definitely a bad answer, but master's takes like way less time than PhD, and also PhD makes you like a professor or something like that. It's higher status, except it takes longer to reach. And then what other people do are like they go work for someone and they return to school. This is like definitely very possible. And for business school in particular, like you can't go straight to business school after graduating from college. You have to like work a job and then go to and then apply to business school. And so I'll sort of go over all like the different options and like how to prepare for them. So for graduate school, a common thing people like go through like after being admitted to college, they're like, oh, college applications are over. I don't have to apply for anything in my life anymore. But sadly, that's not true. You still have to apply for like lots of things. Oh, sorry, did I cut out? Okay, like jobs and like graduate school if you decided to go for it. So basically they ask for 3 recommendation letters. For this, I'd like recommend professors that you know, and it's better like if you've done work with the professor, like you've researched for them or you've been a teaching assistant for. A teaching assistant is basically like you teach the course. So you can only be a teacher assistant for a course that you've taken before. And to get the teacher assistant position, you basically like have a TA interview where you sort of prove that like you remember everything from the curriculum and you're a good teacher. Like the interviewer is going to ask you to like explain the problem or like explain the concept to them, and they'll like sort of evaluate how well you are at teaching others from there. And I think if you're looking for research opportunities, TAing is sort of a good way to get your foot in the door because the professor will know you personally and they'll be more likely to be like, hey, I think that you would work well with me in my lab. Professors, like the main difference in teachers from like college and high school is that in college, they're doing research as their main thing instead of teaching as their main thing. So like a lot of professors, like, I don't want to word it this way, but like they will like care more about the research than teaching. So you will have to like self-teach yourself sometimes for those professors. And there's also a way to like sort of evaluate like what kind of teaching styles each course will have when you're like registering for them. I'll go over that later too. Next slide. Okay, so this is just sort of like a template email when you need to cold email a professor, because like I personally, I didn't TA or anything, and I didn't have like much prior research experience, but you can just email professors at your school. And if you're a student at that school, they'll probably give you a chance because like they were students once too, and they want to pay it forward. But to like get a reply to a cold email, like if you're someone they don't even know, you should like look over their past papers, which are all available online. And you should sort of like say, this is what you found interesting and like why you would like to help them in that area. And usually the subject is like the name of the lab, research interest, and then you say like what grade you are. Well, you basically say like who you are, what you're majoring in, and you should attach your transcript and your resume. You don't actually have to attach your resume, but like it helps like if you have one. Next slide. That's just like a different one that also got a reply. And we can go to next slide, industry. Okay, so if you don't want to like do more school after the initial school, I mean, go to grad school after like undergrad stuff, you should probably look for an internship. And you can do that by attending career fair, preparing your resume, and like doing a lot of interview prep. It's different for all majors. I'm mostly familiar with like how it is for CS majors, but other majors certainly like have different questions that they get that they get asked as well. And a good way to like find out what they are is sort of like attend workshops, because Georgia Tech will host a lot of those. And those workshops are actually like sponsored by like actual companies sometimes. So you can sort of like get your foot in the door by like talking with the presenters there at times. And for like, I mean, resume wise, okay. So a lot of people like, they think GPA is like a requirement. And if you don't put your GPA on there, it seems like you have bad grades. Maybe that's true, but like if you have bad grades, like try not to show it. Just don't put it on your resume. Sometimes they just won't ask if you like pass the interview anyway, because okay, that sort of happened to me. Like I just didn't put it there. Although if you have a really good like GPA, then like yeah, put it on, because like that's proof that you can like do really well in coursework, which sort of relates to doing well in a corporate environment. Also, if you like don't have previous work experience, it's good to like package your previous coursework as like projects, because like doing projects is a good way to show that like you went out and did work anyway. It was unpaid, but you still sort of like worked and like learned skills that you could apply in the job. And list your clubs. And I think it's okay to put things from high school if they're related to like the type of work. Like if you did coding in high school, then like, yeah, you can put it on your like resume for a computer science job. Mostly like if you're a freshman or sophomore, but it's fine like later too. And the personal website, a lot of like people like to make those and sort of like list things on there. I personally don't have one because like I wouldn't have much to list on there, but it's good to show that like, you know, you have your stuff together enough to be able to like figure out how to get a domain name and like do some like basic styling and like code if you're like in code. Also, if you like are an academic, the website is where like all the papers will be. So if you're going to like cold email a professor for research, like if you want to do research in like chemical engineering, for example, all their papers will probably be on their like website. And another way to like sort of get interview opportunities, like a lot of times like people prepare, but like they don't get past initial screening. A good way to like sort of get past this is attend hackathons, because at hackathons there are tons of like recruiters that are trying to find people who like code for fun, well, semi-fun. Hackathons are also like, well, they were a great way to like get like free travel reimbursement and like a bunch of merch, but due to COVID, you can still get the merch, they'll just ship it to you and there is no longer free travel. I also did like a software engineering summit thing. At Georgia Tech, like if you attend like tech talks and like the workshops, you'll probably get a chance to like apply for those. Those are sort of like for companies that don't want to give internships to anyone below junior year level, but they will sort of like invite freshmen and sophomores over and like teach them things, basically like give them a leg up in interviewing junior year. So if you want to like sort of like prepare for junior year internship grinding, like I think attending summits could be a good thing. Next slide. Okay, so this is a bunch of other stuff that I didn't know about before going to college that I wish I knew. So this is like the summary, and we can go to the next slide to dive into them. Okay, so college is actually one of the best times in your life to like learn about any topic. I mean, yeah, you do go to college to learn, but it's easy to like forget that when so many people are like focusing on like making money and achieving clout or like yeah, similar things in college. So Georgia Tech, like for example, will offer free software. Like a lot of universities will do this, like the Adobe Creative Suite, like you can get Photoshop for free. And also like it's easier to access papers if you have an academic email, like a .edu email, which everyone will upon their first year. If you have like that kind of email, you can sign into websites like I think like APA Press and like get access to those things. Like you can have a free New York Times subscription and all that stuff. And this doesn't sound like that like impressive from like an outside view, but if you really want to learn about like a topic, like, oh, is it possible for like, oh wait, yeah, you can ask questions in the chat, by the way. If it's possible for like has this research question been answered? I've been Googling and I can't find it, then it's good to use like an institutional like website to sort of look at the research that's out there, because research tends to be like cutting edge and like an easy way to learn more about that sort of thing. Next slide. Okay, this is sort of like a repost of my last PowerPoint, but it sort of like went over some things that you can do at Georgia Tech. I mean, well, some like groups that you can join at Georgia Tech. So like definitely study. Well, a lot of people really recommend studying abroad. You don't have to, but like the classes tend to be less rigorous and you get to travel to different countries every weekend. So if you do like look on the study abroad website and you see that they're offering a course that you might need to graduate, I would recommend you like go for it. And undergraduate research, there's like VIP, which you're basically guaranteed to get if you don't want to start like cold emailing professors off the bat. And you can sort of like test the waters and see if research is for you that way. Because VIPs are like not one student and like one professor in a lab. It's usually like one professor and multiple students who are sort of like helping him do a project that is part of his lab. And you're also just short for undergraduate research opportunities, which like you could get by cold emailing. That was like sort of what I went over before. And there are like living learning communities. I think that's like basically like some like a dorm group that you can join in your first year if you want to. You don't have to. It is useful to like meet faculty at times, and like I got a research opportunity from there. And then entrepreneurial wise, we have a startup accelerator called CreateX. And there are also like courses that you can take for credit, like junior design credit, that will also help you test the waters if you like entrepreneurship. So like you can see if you like research or entrepreneurship if you don't know like how to pick between the two, or if you don't want to pick between the two. And again, like I would recommend, and if not only it's clout, but also because they will pool like past academic resources, and you'll have like a significant advantage in actually getting good grades as well. Although I know like it can be like difficult. Like I think for sororities they make you like run in high heels or something. It's called like Race of the Roses. Honestly, I sort of forgot because I'm not in one. But okay, next slide. Okay, housing. So everyone lives like on campus the first year pretty much, but afterwards you can live off campus. Why would people campus? Well, the dorms are nicer, and also sometimes like it might be closer to like the part of campus that you regularly attend classes, and it might be cheaper than Georgia Tech housing. Although Georgia Tech housing is like usually price wise. And to find like what places are leasing, you should probably join a subleasing group on Facebook, because that's usually like where people who have signed contracts and can no longer like stay in the house will try to sublease their housing. Okay, wait, a little bit of like clarification. So basically, when you want to rent an apartment for a year, usually it's like that long amount of time. That's like signing a lease. So you're like the lease owner. But if you want like someone else to live there, because like let's say you got an internship in California and you can no longer live in your apartment in Georgia that you like have to stay in because you have a contract, you can sublease it to someone, and they're called your subleaser. And subleasing is generally cheaper than signing the lease. And the person like who subleases, they usually like lose money. Although at that point, like I guess they're generally glad, because it's better than like not getting like any money and just like not living in the apartment at all. And also there's a way to get like Georgia Tech to pay your housing for you if you decide to become an RA, which is like an advisor. But the downside of that is that like you basically stay in the dorm and take care of like the freshmen there. So like you stay in a freshman dorm, but you're like you stay there for free. So that's a good thing. The downside is you have to babysit freshmen. Next slide. Okay, so this is like a bit of like a very technical type of thing. So basically how registration at Georgia Tech works, I think it's a little harder than like private schools, because Georgia Tech has such a large student population. So you should really plan ahead if you want to make sure that you get the courses you want or need to graduate. Like a lot of times like people's graduations get delayed because they don't get a course they need, and they have to take another filler course like history of chairs, and it's frustrating. Oh yeah, Kathy asked, do you have guidance or tips for people applying to Georgia Tech? I have a different presentation that sort of goes over this in detail, but I would say like for the prompts they have, like why Georgia Tech, like be really specific and name like courses that you would like to take, or like if it's like CS that you're applying as, for example, name like the threads that you would want, or like name an example of a professor and what they're doing. But anyway, there's like phase 1 registration and phase 2 registration. Oh yeah. The link is like, I think it was recorded on YouTube. So if someone could put the YouTube link in chat, that'd be nice. All right, so basically like all the classes, they have a number associated with them, and you have to enter the number into the website to like get it. And you might not get it due to like restrictions, because the good thing is that like if you're a psychology major and you want a psychology course, obviously you get priority in achieving that course over like a math major who like doesn't need that course as much as you, because you're the psychology major. So you'll have like priority. But if you are a math major and you still want that course, you should get like a permit so that the website doesn't like block you from signing up for the course. And also you can sign up like for a course waitlist, in which case like when people drop it in phase 2, which is sort of like the second phase of registration for like if you're having second thoughts about classes, you're like, oh, I can't actually take 15 hours this year, that's crazy. You can just like maybe get off the wait list then. Thank you, Sydney. Next slide. Okay, this is also sort of like a rehash, but I think it's really important because you can save a lot of money this way. If you are in state, please maintain your GPA while you're in college. You do have to like get above a 3.3 if you're like Giselle Miller, or like above 3.0 if you're Hope. However, the good thing is that they're weighted. So for example, if like I get a D in linear algebra and like it'll be weighted as like 2.5 instead of 2.0 in the GPA. So like it might average out to something better. And I think like they count like all courses, so like English courses and like health courses. So the GPA you see on your transcript, I'm saying is not like the one that is weighted for like considering scholarships. They're like generally a little more like flexible regarding scholarships, but it's very good to like make sure you're maintaining them. And I think there's like a way to check on like the Georgia scholarships website. And I mean all that info will definitely be like emailed to you if you're like in and like you're eligible. Okay, last slide. Okay, sorry. So this presentation was sort of prepared in a rush, but if you have questions, you can email me and I'll answer them. I'm not like the best person to take advice from either, but like no matter what, you're gonna be fine. Like you have a lot of options, and that's like better than like having very little. So that's the pros of going to like a college like this.
Yeah, okay, thank you so much, Jessie. We really enjoyed your presentation. I know I personally learned a lot from it, and I was especially interested in the part where you talked about housing. So I also wanted to ask, since I know you talked a little bit about how the study abroad opportunities were great. So have you personally had any study abroad opportunities or went abroad?
Okay, I haven't, but like I know a lot of people who have, and they all like rave about it. And also the classes like I cannot verify that they were easier as like I've taken one, but I think, for example, like I've taken a class domestically in Georgia and someone took the same class in like France. And it was pretty clear that the France one was easier. So that's like why I have the perception. But also like, I don't know, it's like a general thing, but like obviously you won't see this like on the website or anything.
Okay, great. And do you possibly plan on having any or going abroad if there's an opportunity like once the pandemic is over?
Oh yeah, definitely. A lot of people were planning to go like this spring, except it was canceled because France doesn't want the United States COVID. But yeah, I think it might be possible like maybe fall or like next spring. I think it's kind of weird to go like the last semester of college, but
Yeah, that makes sense. And also, I had a question about being in Atlanta. So I know that Georgia Tech is very close to like downtown and stuff. So did that in any way affect why you chose to go to Georgia Tech?
okay, yeah. So I think living like near a city is just awesome because for one, like it's just beautiful, but also like I think you get exposure to a lot of different things that you wouldn't if you were like staying in an on-campus bubble. And a lot of like people, like parents particularly, might be concerned about like the danger. Although like the Georgia Tech area is fine. I think it's in like Midtown Atlanta, so it's not too bad.
Yeah, great.
But also like you'll get to like go to the Fox Theater and a lot of different places. Also, the good thing about Georgia Tech is that it's near Emory, which is like a medical school. So if you're like a BME major, you could definitely like sort of like go between the two and get involved in a lot of different things.
Right, right. I know when I went to Atlanta, I went to Georgia Tech and then visited Emory, and it was a pretty short drive actually between the two, but it's like Emory, I know they have a national like forest or something beside it, like a forest preserve. So it's like you kind of get the best of both worlds, I would say, when you're in Atlanta. Yeah. And we also have a question in the chat from Linda. It says, is it easy to build the relationship with professors and peers through virtual classes?
Okay, so yeah, it's actually surprisingly easy, and it's because a lot of people don't care about building relationships with professors and peers. So if you even like participate a little bit, you are literally one of like 5 people that are actually interacting with the professor. Like a surprising amount of people like don't really bother to ask questions, and sometimes they don't even show up for lecture because lectures are being recorded, and you can just visit them asynchronously. But like if you're in a different time zone and like you really can't make it to lecture, like you can't help it, that's fine as well because you can like still communicate with the professor through email or like Piazza, which is like a forum that tech uses. And Piazza is updated like really fast. Like if you ask a question, the the teaching assistant or the professor will reply to you like within a day. So
Wow.
yeah, it's a good alternative to email.
Great, thank you. And then now I'll pass it off to Sydney. She'll ask a couple of more questions that were from the Google form. So Sydney, if you want to go ahead.
Hi, so our first question is, why did you choose this major and how do you like it so far?
Okay, so I picked computer science because it's very easy to like get an internship. Honestly, I mean compared to like some other majors, also like given the position I was in, but yeah, I'm really liking it. I guess like for CS, there's one thing like GPA was not too important. Like I think I mentioned earlier that I didn't put my GPA on my resume, so I wasn't as motivated to like grind for classes as other people. And I think like instead of learning things in courses, I was sort of like more focused on like preparing for interviews and doing practical things like building websites. Like there are classes at Georgia Tech that teach you how to make websites and apps, but that's not the focus. They're mostly focused on teaching you like theory, which were more like mathematical things that I didn't find myself like as drawn to like when I was a freshman, although those things are like really useful to learn as well. So like CS is very flexible and you can sort of like make it into what you want to. Like you can definitely like get involved in the theory as well.
Right. So also, since you're in the computer science field, do you find that a lot of your classes are mostly male dominated?
Okay, yeah. So Georgia Tech does get a lot of flack for its like ratio, and it's even worse in CS, honestly. But the thing is, like, you don't really notice it as a girl if you like make friends with other girls because then you're still surrounded by girls. You sort of only notice like 10 people around you at any given time. So if you sort of like stay within a group, um, like it'll be fine. Although yeah, there are definitely like a lot of like challenges that women face in the field.
Right. All right. Thank you. I'll pass it off to Marissa now to introduce our third speaker.
Okay, thank you so much, Sydney. So I would like to introduce our third speaker, Michelle Zhao. Michelle is a graduate from Rice University and she studied cognitive science and neuroscience. She received her master's in public health studying refugee and immigrant population health disparities. Now Michelle is a first-year medical student at Rutgers Robert Wood Johnson Medical School, and she aspires to go into health policy and practice women's health medicine. Please join me in welcoming Michelle.
Hi everyone. I'm just gonna screen share really quickly. Okay. Oops, did not want to do that. Oops, okay, wait. Click the wrong button. But you guys can all see my screen, right?
Yeah, we can see it.
Awesome. All right. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about exactly what the title says, college academics and life. So as Marissa mentioned, I went to Rice University from 2014 to 2018. So my academic background at Rice involves me majoring at Rice in cognitive sciences and minoring in neuroscience. And I was also on the pre-med track. And essentially my research and my academic interests kind of transitioned when I was in college from being really involved in like neuroscience research, STEM research to medical ethics, and then kind of going into more public health and clinical work. And then I did a lot of extracurricular activities that involved refugee and immigrant work, as Marissa mentioned, shadowing as a pre-med student, volunteering, and being involved in neuroscience activities. And of course, I'll talk a little bit more about my college life as well. So essentially Rice has a bunch of different schools, but School of Architecture and School of Music are kind of more of a specific application process. And the four main ones for undergrad students tend to be the School of Engineering, Humanities, Natural Sciences, and Social Sciences. And you can easily switch between majors and schools when you're an undergrad. You're not really tied to a specific school or a specific major at all. So this is just a list of some majors available for undergrad. Rice also has a bunch of minors that are similar, but also include other things. So we have, your classic engineering, computer science, statistics, to School of Humanities, a lot of different studies from cultures, study of women, gender, and sexuality, visual and dramatic arts, to natural sciences like biochemistry and cell biology, physics, astronomy, mathematics, to the School of Social Sciences, which involves linguistics, economics, sports management, political science, etc. And so I kind of bolded some of the majors that I was interested in going into Rice. So I was really passionate about history, French studies, biochem, cognitive sciences, and psychological sciences. So picking my major and minor, essentially I went in being really interested in studying neuroscience. However, at the time, Rice did not have a major. Now they do. But I was really interested because I was a big fan of David Eagleman. I don't know if you guys know him, but he wrote Incognito, which caused me to really like neuroscience in high school. So I remember the first week of orientation, I met with an academic advisor and expressed my indecision between choosing to major in biochem versus cognitive sciences. And then based on what he was telling me, as well as some of the other peers that I was talking to, I realized that cognitive sciences with the neuroscience minor was more on par with what I really wanted to learn and was closest to neuroscience in general. And the reason why is because it's a very interdisciplinary study. So it's technically defined as looking at mental phenomena like perception, thought, memory, acquisition, learning, and consciousness. And it involves all of these different fields. So philosophy, linguistics, anthropology, neuroscience, artificial intelligence, and psychology. And I love studying like anything from the humanities to the natural sciences to anything in between. So this was essentially the perfect major for me. It also involved neuroscience, which was what I mainly wanted to study. And at Rice, the 5 main ones that we take classes from are in the fields of psychology, philosophy, linguistics, neuroscience, and artificial intelligence, also known as computer science. So these are just some of my favorite major and minor classes. They include like multilingualism, medical human factors, language acquisition, perception, cognitive neuroscience. And then I also mentioned that I am a pre-med student. So that meant that I have to fulfill certain requirements that medical schools look for. So this involves all of that. So biology classes, biolabs, chemistry labs, organic chemistry labs, biochem, physics, mathematics. I think it's just like one course of that, statistics. And then I think psychology and sociology are recommended but not required. Some humanities and also an English class. So in addition to my major and minor classes, I also had to fulfill this requirement. And then at Rice, I don't think they're very strict on having so many requirements to graduate. You just need to take a certain number of upper level classes, complete one LPAP, which is essentially a fitness or sports class. It doesn't have to be anything active. It could be like yoga. They also offer Pilates and team sports and some that aren't as requiring you to like change and, get involved in like actual sports. It's a very flexible thing, and it's actually great because they're essentially like free fitness classes. We also had to complete a first year writing class, and then we had to do 3 courses from each distribution. And so Rice defines the distributions as 1 being in the arts and humanities, so 3 classes in this distribution, 3 from social sciences, and 3 classes from science and engineering. And I personally thought, at least with my major, and I think a lot of other students felt the same way, that it was really easy to fulfill those distributions. And then these are just some of my favorite classes outside of my major in track. Probably one of my favorite ones was the last one. It's called Monster, and it's essentially a collaboration between the biochem teacher or the biological sciences professor, as well as a French and humanities professor. And we just explored and read a lot of articles, did art and media studies about the conception of what makes a monster. And we looked at scientific articles as well as reading a bunch of artwork and books. So it was, again, interdisciplinary. It's a very interdisciplinary class, and that was just something that defined my academic interests in college. And then I also did some research, and as you kind of go further down, they go more recent, and they go kind of transition from more wet lab science to more public health work. So one of my first research opportunities was looking at neurogenetic research with fruit flies, studying them to be models for Alzheimer's. Another one looked at more of like a medical ethics approach and what is data ownership when it comes to a lot of databases that hold a lot of medical information. And then the last two are actually not research I did in college, but research I did in my graduate studies. But it looked at like more clinical research with patients who had epilepsy, to a community health study looking at school social health in an immigrant and refugee heavy community in Houston. And then some of my extracurricular activities included, a lot of work with refugees. So mentoring refugees and tutoring them. I was also like the co-president of the refugee organization at our school. I was also involved with Bryce Neuroscience Society. I was a peer academic advisor, so that meant advising undergraduate students that were underclassmen with their schedules and what classes they should take to fulfill their graduation requirements. I was a newsletter representative within my residential college, and I was really involved with orientation week during my 3 years there. As well as I also participated in like some like shorter term volunteering opportunities, like alternative spring breaks, in which students engage in a week-long volunteering project in any place in the country with a variety of different topics. And probably two of my most notable experiences from an academic point of view were being an international ambassador for my School of Social Sciences, where I traveled to South Africa to conduct focus groups and interviews with rural Western Cape women about pesticides and fetal alcohol syndrome. And this was actually one of my first like public health experiences that really pushed me to want to study that a little bit more and get my MPH. And then my second one was one I did the year after the international ambassador in college, and it was establishing an organization or a curriculum called Houston Empowering Refugees, which established some health education classes with refugee women to help them navigate the US healthcare system. So that is, I think, in its third year running right now. So that's something that I take a lot of pride in. I learned a lot from. So now I'm just going to transition really quickly to talking about college life at Rice. As I mentioned in the first seminar, Rice doesn't have a Greek life system, but instead it has a residential college system, which I think, in my opinion, works even better. At least it works better for me, in which all undergraduate students are sorted into different houses or Hogwarts houses. We call them residential colleges, and each college has its own set of traditions and culture. Then each college has its own structure, its own government, as well as its own building and dormitory. So you live with people from all different years in the undergraduate college, and you spend the next 4 years in this area. And these are the ones that Rice has. And the one that I'm a part of is Weiss College, which is the one in the middle. So again, I kind of talked about this in the previous slide, but these are just some pictures of the different residential colleges that we offer. Again, there are separate buildings. Obviously, students can go in and out of them, doesn't really matter. But it's kind of nice, especially as a freshman, not really knowing a lot of people, to easily make friends in this fashion and really have a really strong sense of community from the very beginning. And I don't know if I really could have gotten that at some other schools. And so for each residential college system, you start in with orientation week within this college. So you immediately get to know so many people in that way. We're kind of split into like groups of 10, and we have like 4-year-long relationships with these people. Each college also has its own peer academic advisors. And obviously you have roommates who are from the same college as well, because you live in the same building. And then every college has a college night every semester where, you just get to eat and have fun with your friends on a Friday night. And there's usually a theme, and you get free t-shirts, or not free t-shirts, but you have like coordinated t-shirts, and it's really exciting. There's also Fridays in the quad every week where, after a long week of school, people are just chilling outside in the quad by their dormitory and just hanging out and blasting music. And it's a really great end to a usually stressful week. We also have different dining halls that we tend to share with a sister college that's next door. We also have separate powder puff teams and intramural sports teams. And we also have annual holiday events like pumpkin decorating, buying Christmas trees, guacamole competitions, you name it. We tend to celebrate a lot of the holidays. There's also an associates night where everyone gets dressed up and we kind of connect with alumni and professors associated with their college. And then every college also throws a themed public party every semester, and this happens every year. So as you can see on the left, these are some of like the Weiss College traditions we do. We have cabinet, we go to the beach every year. We go ice skating. It's really fun. And again, it's so easy to have a great sense of belongingness from the beginning and for the next 4 years. And it's also great because within these residential colleges and between them, we have a lot of competitions. So, every college has its own cheer and anti-cheer. So there's definitely some rivalry going on, but it's all in good fun. And it's really exciting. Probably one of the coolest things is that we have, I think it's official, but like the largest water balloon fight in the world. And so this happens every March. And it's really fun because you see all the different colors with all the different students associated with the residential colleges. And then also some study spots at Rice. I am a big believer in kind of varying up where you study. So a classic place is Fondren Library. A lot of people also study in their commons of their residential colleges. And then my personal favorite is Rice Coffee House, which is a student-run business that is a coffee shop. And again, it's a really great way to get work done, but also engage with friends and meet new people as well. And the picture on the bottom left is Pub, which is another student-run business that a lot of people like going to on Thursday nights and throughout the week. And then living in Houston, I think is, again, really awesome. Living in a city is really cool, and kind of moving to a new one from my perspective was also very unique. Rice Village is a place that is right by the school. People can walk there, you can drive there if you want, but a lot of students tend to eat there on Saturday nights or on the weekends. There's shopping there as well, so it's a really great way to feel a bit more connected to Houston and not just being stuck at Rice. I personally think they have some of the best and the cheapest food in any other city I've been to in America. And it's super diverse, so you kind of get really good food from many different cultures. And Rice is also very centrally located, so a lot of great restaurants and coffee shops as well. And then because it's in the South, I think that, if you do choose to live off campus one year or, whenever, it is relatively affordable as well compared to some other major cities. And then I think living in Texas for me was also a great part of my college experience. I'm not from Texas, I'm from New Jersey. So kind of transitioning to that place was it was interesting. But I mean, I love Texan culture. It is true. Everyone is really nice. There's great food, of course. A lot of college students on spring break or just whenever, we tend to go to fun road trips in between cities like Austin, Dallas, San Antonio. And a lot of people also go to Mardi Gras by, just driving like 5 hours to New Orleans. So there's a lot to do, even though, you also, are in a great community within Rice. There's a lot to do outside of Rice as well. There's also some state parks and national parks in the area. So now I graduated from Rice in 2018, and then I participated in this 4+1 program with UT Health, where I received my MPH the year after. So I was taking classes at the school my senior year, and that was kind of a culmination of my building interest in public health with my research experiences beforehand. And then I did some CDC respiratory virus research at Texas Children's Hospital while applying to medical school. And now I'm a first year medical student at Rutgers, so I'm back home in New Jersey. And I mean, this goes without saying, but Rice and just the college experience has been a huge part of my life, my career trajectory. So I really recommend you guys to think really hard about what you value and what you want in the next 4 years, because it can make a really big difference. And I emphasize this in the first seminar, but I would also say to be really open-minded. College is definitely the time to experiment and make meaningful relationships with mentors and friends. So always have fun, but just make sure to take advantage of all the amazing opportunities that you'll be given in college, because I don't know, it's a very unique experience you won't get outside of the 4 years that you're there. And that is it for my presentation.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I really liked hearing about how you chose your major, since I know like that's a really big struggle for a lot of students. And also the residential life seems really fun. So I don't think there's any questions in the Zoom chat, but I have some other questions from the Google form. Okay, so what is your advice for burnout?
Yeah, it's definitely a very common thing in college. I think it's really important to remember first that it happens to a lot of people in college, so you're not alone. And I think the second part is to like maybe instill some kind of change, whether that be like a physical change, studying in a different spot, just being in a different environment for even a couple of days, I think can make a really big difference. Taking a little break from school and not thinking about it too much could also help. But I think above all, reaching out to your friends, your family, as well as your mentors at college are super important, because not only will they have a lot of social resources, but they'll have like more tangible resources if it really does get serious. So I would say to really remember you're not alone and to reach out to people who want the best for you.
Yeah, definitely. I think a support system is really important, especially if you're really busy. And I think there was a private message, and your question was, what made you make the decision to go to medical school?
Yeah, so I kind of came in, or at least from my high school, I really wanted to do something relating to biomedical sciences. And then after doing some research in that, I realized I didn't want to go down like the PhD route or do research my whole life. So I was more interested in engaging with people about the sciences. And I feel like medicine is a really good pretty good definition of that. So, you know, I came in being like preemptively pre-med. So I was doing all the classes, but I wasn't fully 100% committed yet. But I feel like it wasn't until I did my public health studies and did those projects where I realized that there needs to be an intersection between public health and medicine. And oftentimes there are not. So I thought, you know, as much as I love doing these public health projects and looking at the prevention of health, I really want to be able to directly treat patients and directly impact the health of individuals as well. So my goal is to kind of combine both of those things as a future physician.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for joining today.
Thank you.
And now I would like to pass it on to Jerry, who will introduce our final speaker.
Okay, I think Jerry is having some audio problems right now. So Marissa, would you mind just going ahead and also introduce our last speaker?
Yeah, sure. Okay. So our final speaker is Gina Kim. She is a junior at Duke University studying psychology with a minor in history, and she earned the Dean's List of Distinction for her academics. She's also a student athlete on the women's golf team and won the 2019 NCAA championship with her team as a freshman. Please join me in welcoming Gina.
Hi, everyone. As Marissa mentioned, or well, introduced me, I am Gina Kim. I am still currently a student at Duke University. And I'm a student athlete on the golf team, so I have a slightly different life than what most college students would think of when they go to college. So I thought I'd share a little bit of my perspective as a student athlete and how college life is for me. So just from the get-go, application process and just everything is slightly different for student athletes who are committed here with a scholarship. But that doesn't quite mean that like we're kind of excluded separately from the rest of the student population. We do have two campuses, East Campus and West Campus, and East Campus is where all the freshmen are grouped together for everyone to like mingle, get to know each other, find commonalities, and just make friends that that would last a lifetime. So student athletes are not excluded from this, and we all got to live in that residential spaces. And when I came in as a freshman, Zion, RJ Barrett, and Cam Reddish came in as well. So it is kind of interesting to see, basketball players just eating in the same dining hall as us. And you also run into other student athletes as well. And we tend to mingle with other regular students as well. I mean, you wouldn't really be able to tell who's a student athlete and who isn't, considering Duke's first priority is making sure you're a great student before you're a great athlete. And I guess in order, like, Duke's very big on feeling welcome, making sure, you settle in quickly, just feeling like you're at home. And so for my dorm specifically, we have this huge basement underneath. And that's where we would usually watch basketball games together, considering our school's a huge basketball school. And those are definitely the type of memories that you can't tend to forget very easily. So there's a lot of school spirit. We're just one big tight knit community. And after freshman year, you move over to West Campus where the rest of the upperclassmen live. And starting from like sophomore year, they start to tell you like, oh, I hope you're starting to think about your major, just taking as many classes like with like diverse classes. And one of the biggest advice that they give is, don't feel burdened or obligated to know what path you need to take right from the get-go. So I just took a bunch of classes just here and there, literally all over the spectrum, and just was dabbling in everything. And I found that I really liked psychology the best. Obviously, a lot of my teammates also majored in psychology as well and recommended to me why it was a great major. The department staff, they were amazing, very supportive of whatever career decisions I wanted to make. And so I just recently declared history as my minor. It was literally just a couple weeks ago, considering I just loved learning in history classes, and I just loved the professors there too. And I think like something that I feel like Duke is really good at is just offering support whenever students need it. There's things called flunches where you go out and get lunch with your professors, and Duke obviously covers for that. And they're just always supportive and making sure you have everything you need in terms of resources. And obviously, with COVID happening right now and it being a very concerning issue, um, they've been very careful to make sure that every student, faculty, and staff member gets tested 3 times a week. So we are able to hold in-person classes. So I've been feeling really proud of what Duke's been doing. And I think ever since I made my decision to commit to Duke University, I haven't regretted it one bit. I'm really happy where I am right now. And even though I am planning not to pursue any further higher level academic degrees, I'm planning to pursue a professional career after college. I still do think that this college experience is definitely not something that you can give up very easily. A lot of people in my sport tend to leave college early. I on the other hand just love Duke so much. It's hard for me to do that. So yeah, if anybody has questions, please let me know.
Okay, thank you. So I actually have some questions also from the Google form, and I want to make sure everyone knows that they can also type in the chat either publicly or privately to me. And okay, my first question is, since I know you play golf and that is a huge part of your like college life, what are some tips for time management for balancing like athletics and academics?
Oh yeah. This question is definitely a good one. As a student athlete, we don't really have much time to spare. Um, is- I mean, just even getting enough sleep is a concern for us. But I would say, for me personally, I think getting to know your professors really, really well and forming a good relationship with them. If you show that you're trying hard and you really want to learn the material in the class and you're just passionate about it, then the professors tend to be really, really flexible and they work around your schedule as well. Also, just whenever you're receiving assignments, just trying to space it out and planning it out. I'm not saying you should just go ahead and like do it in one go, but just kind of doing certain amount of chunks every day and kind of separating them to make sure you're not feeling overwhelmed and burnt out. I tend to find that the most helpful, just maintaining a routine. I think that's the most solid plan because sometimes you're feeling really, really motivated, and other times you're just like, I can't get up out of bed. So having a routine to stick to helps a lot with feelings of burnout or just not wanting to do anything much after like a hard exam or something. So
Yeah, I think that was a really good point. Um, okay, another question is, who are some good people to make connections with in college?
yeah, like I mentioned before, having good relationships with professors uh tend to go a long way. A lot of these professors, being a professor isn't just their only job. It's actually some professors are actually like it's almost a hobby for them. And these professors tend to do research more or they're working in the medical school. I mean, I've already had numerous psych professors who um, are only professors simply because they're just a well-known researcher and they're basically world famous for what they've contributed to the scientific community. So sometimes once in a while when their labs need people to help with their research, they actually ask their class like, hey, is if anybody's interested in this topic, I'm actually studying on that right now, like please let me know, what if you like to join, and I can put you down on like the list and I'll choose some people. And it's usually these connections with professors that tend to help people kind of figure out what they want to do, like if they want to go into research or if they want to go into medical school or something or go into some other graduate program. um, it's usually the professors who are kind of your first line of people to go for. Obviously, deans as well. There's a lot of deans who are professors as well, and who also have connections into some of our other graduate programs at Duke. They offer a lot of good advice on how to kind of prepare yourself for the next step after college. So I think two types of people really helps you kind of figure out what you want to do later on in life.
Yeah, definitely. I think having a relationship with teachers, mentors, and pretty much anyone you learn from is important, not in college, not just in college, but also in like high school and stuff like that. So another question is, how did you decide your school and what is your favorite thing about Duke?
Yeah, so I committed to Duke when I was right at the beginning of my sophomore year. I kind of had to make my decision a little earlier than most people, but I visited 5 schools: UNC, Duke, Wake Forest, UCLA, and Southern Cal. And eventually it came down to Wake Forest and Duke. I knew I wanted to go to a private school with a smaller student population that I knew could kind of focus more on the students, and kind of just not be as all over the place and having to take care of so many other people. That was just my preference from the beginning. And then also, I live like 15 minutes away from campus. So I'm more the local person around here. So I've already felt comfortable with the environment. So it wasn't really quite that hard of a transition, or I knew it wasn't going to be when I made my decision. And my trainer and my coach, well, my former coach, both work at Duke. So I would go practice at the Duke golf course, and I would run into the head coach often. So to me, Duke was already basically my second home, and I was just very comfortable. And I was like, this is it. This is exactly where I feel like I need to be. And I think that's like another big advice. Like you definitely need to kind of get that feeling like, oh, I can see myself here. I feel like I belong here. Then I feel like that's when you know that's the college for you.
Yeah, so I think this will be our last question. Um, you kind of touched on how you chose your major, psychology. And somebody also asked, do you have any tips for getting financial aid or full ride?
um, well, I got my scholarship, my full ride scholarship through golf. I played a lot of national tournaments to kind of get into my head coach's radar. And you know, NCAA rules are kind of picky on when and how you can meet them. But back then they were a little less strict, so I was able to make some visits to these different schools and kind of talk to the coaches like, I'm really interested in the school. What do you think? Like, is there some negotiation we can do? Like, because obviously I can't pay for the full thing. College is very expensive. But it somehow worked out with Duke. I did receive full ride scholarships from other schools as well, but at when after I received those scholarships, I realized it was down to where I felt like I belonged. But in terms of financial aid and just other scholarships in general, I just feel like, there's definitely a lot of scholarships out there like that I don't even know about. But it's definitely something that would be worth looking up and just kind of taking a shot and going for it. I think most people tend to be a little hesitant and saying like, oh, I'm not gonna make it, like, but I think you gotta kind of set your goals high in order to be able to, get something tangible along the way. And then obviously, if you keep working hard, good luck comes along, and something you didn't even expect comes along. So, it seems like j- just yesterday I was kind of coming into high school and thinking, how on earth am I going to get recruited? Because I have no idea what I'm doing. But I feel like every journey starts somewhere. So, I highly recommend just going for it, being aggressive, just apply for everything you can find.
Yeah, that is a really good piece of advice. Thank you so much for joining us today. Really loved hearing about your experience. And I want to thank everyone who joined our second college seminar, and an extra special thank you, of course, to all our speakers. And I would also like to thank our sponsor, Connections Tutoring Center. And we hope to see you all soon. One of our upcoming events actually is the middle school main event competition, math competition in June. And that is going to be followed by a combined STEM spotlight seminar, and a awards ceremony. And then we will send out more information on this soon. And now I want to pass it off to Amanda.
Thank you, Marissa. So again, thank you so much to everyone who came and listened. If you want to listen again or maybe show your friends, we have been streaming these seminars on our YouTube Live. So you can always go to our MIG channel and check it out there if you want. You can kind of rewatch it or whatever you want. So if anybody has any questions, you can send an email to the Math Invitational for Girls Gmail. I will type it in the chat. So feel free to do so. And that will pretty much, yes, so I put it in the chat for everyone to see. And yeah, so that is pretty much going to wrap up our seminar for today. Thank you so much again for everyone who joined and everyone who gave their presentations. So I will see you guys next time.